Hello, we're going to take a look at the moment at a tendency in the news to see articles that try to point to larger anatomical things, structures on humans or animals, but then it is suggested that this proves evolution. A good example is the news article that just showed up this morning. The human neck is a mistake of evolution is the title of this article that appeared in the Salon magazine. The subtitle is Sleep apnea, which afflicts 1 out of 15 Americans, is a consequence of too many adaptations stuffed into our neck. The writer of the article attempts to show that evolution had brought so many changes and adaptations to the neck of a human that it now has led to a major medical problem, which is sleep apnea. And this purportedly proves that there wouldn't be any design. A designer, someone who had built the human body, would have avoided this potential for something like sleep apnea to develop, would have made a better design. This is the antithesis of what Christians and intelligent design proponents do when they point to a particular feature in a human or an animal and say that this is so brilliantly designed that it's impossible for this to have happened by accident. Good example of this, I was recently at a talk on creation where the person presenting was discussing the heat sensing pits on the front face of a snake. There is also a classic illustration of the chemical reaction from two different chambers of the bombardier beetle that mix and then is shot out in a pulsed reaction, creating a very hot caustic gas that is blown out the back end of the beetle toward its target. And these are seen as structures that demonstrate that there absolutely had to be design. Well, where are we to go with these things? On the one hand, the evolutionists say that we have structures or features that show that it's not designed well. On the other hand, we have Christians that are saying that there are designs or features that are impossible to evolve. Well, what's the fact here? The fact of the matter is that neither one of these now is scientifically sufficient to demonstrate or disprove Darwinism. They might be interesting accounts or circumstances or pieces of evidence, but they're not sufficient to settle the score, so to speak, to make sure you get to the right answer. In order to do that, you have to look now on the biomolecular level. Nothing at the larger structure is going to resolve the question because everything was built up from the chemical, from the biological, the molecular level, and it is there that the question has to be resolved. If molecules self-assemble and then create larger structures accidentally, without purpose, without direction, then evolutionary theory is supported and the whole enterprise of Christianity and the creation is called into account. If, on the other hand, molecules such as proteins do not self-assemble and do not build the larger structures of life, then Darwinism is called into question. What is found in the lab? In the lab, it is increasingly becoming known, and of course, the proponents of Darwinism don't want you to know this, but in the lab, it is becoming known that the odds are infinitely against molecules self-assembling and larger structures coming randomly, accidentally. And we even know the limits of this now in the lab. A protein can only change 1 or at the maximum 2 times accidentally according to statistics, probability. It's now seen as statistically impossible for a protein to randomly assemble or make incremental progressive maneuvers or changes. It's already been discovered, it's already demonstrated. But what do the evolutionists do? They head back to the larger structures. It's like the paleontologists 100 years ago taking the sets of bones and making a display, making a sequence and saying, see, the one changed into the next. They're still using these structures, arguing from the larger organs or the larger structures of life. None of that is sufficient anymore. And none of it is sufficient for the Christian either. If you want to resolve the question of is there a designer, was there informational input, you got to get down to the molecular level. It's the only thing that is going to get resolution to this question now. Joyfully, the Christian's faith is supported. It's become very obvious that random accidental occurrence didn't assemble molecules, and it doesn't assemble the larger organs and the creatures themselves. It's resolved. It's already known. The only thing we have to go on now is just trying to educate people, inform people, like the writer of this article, that they're arguing from something that is now a moot point. It's not going to resolve the question. And you, Christian, when you're in a discussion with somebody, take them down to the most minute levels. If life didn't evolve at the molecular level, it isn't going to change all the way on up to the shape and the structure and function of organs and creatures. Now that you know that, you can be an informed and powerful witness. Blessings.